What is going on, everybody? So, if you're unfamiliar, I am a big fan of the Criterion collection. If you don't know, I do a segment on my channel called the Criterion Corner, which is a segment on my channel where I go through the Criterion collection, select films, and discuss them in great detail. And one of the things I love about Criterion, which, if you're unfamiliar, Criterion is a company that is interested in the preservation of cinema. They produce Blu-ray and DVD copies of movies that they consider really important to filmmaking overall, movies that they feel like deserve that level of highlighting. And what they do a lot of times is they work with filmmakers and creative teams on movies to kind of give them the opportunity to use these Blu-ray releases to either release behind the scenes things, have commentary, and just present the film in the way that it's meant to be presented. Because a lot of times when Blu-rays and DVDs are mass produced, they don't often do it in a way that puts the movie in the format that it was intended to be in. Like when you think about DVDs and the way that they were released initially, it was full screen and widescreen, which would oftentimes screw up the aspect ratio where you could not see things that were supposed to be in the frame. And so these are all presented in a way that they're supposed to be so that you can see it in the way that the director envisioned. And in the month of July, Barnes & Noble always does a deal with Criterion where they offer 50% off all of their physical media. So all their Blu-rays, DVDs, 4K, anything that you want to get a hold of comes in at 50% off. And so I thought today I would pull some of my Blu-rays from my collection. I have over 65 Criterion Blu-rays, so I'm not going to go through my entire collection, but I just picked some ones today that I think are really worth adding to your collection, and I'm going to talk about them a little bit. I'm just going to give a little brief description and tell you why I think they're worth picking up, so let's get into it. So first up, a relatively newer release, and that is going to be Sean Baker's Anora. I actually just picked this up recently. This won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. I absolutely loved this movie. I think that it has phenomenal performances, excellent cinematography, and it does a really great job at what Sean Baker does really well, which is take these communities that aren't often talked about in great detail and kind of showcasing their life and an experience in a raw, realistic way that you can empathize towards, even if you don't understand it to its fullest. Looking at a sex worker who is given the opportunity, like, hey, if I start dating this guy, I can make enough money that I don't have to worry about going in and working my ass off every single night to make penny after penny just to survive. I can just be taken care of as long as I put up with this guy. And just kind of watching the trajectory of this relationship and how it spirals out of control. Very reminiscent of real life experience. I just found the movie to be incredibly hilarious while also being very emotionally vulnerable. Really well acted, well produced, just a really incredible film that I'm glad to have in my permanent collection. Up next is another relatively recent film, and that is Wim Wenders' Perfect Days. One of the most beautiful films that I've seen in probably the past 15 years, about a man who works as a janitor, and it's legitimately a snapshot into his life. We even see long extended scenes of him cleaning bathrooms. But what this movie is it's an examination of finding what's important in life. It's a movie that is completely and totally about no matter what your circumstances, the type of life that you live, the job that you have to attempt to find and hold on to moments of joy, because the life you are given is the only one that you get. I found myself so emotionally moved by the end of this. I just thought it was absolutely brilliant. The performances throughout the film are amazing. Musical choices are incredible. Just one of the best in Wim Wenders' entire filmography. Up next is the film All of Us Strangers, a movie that made me cry more than anything in quite some time. About a man played by Andrew Scott moving into a new apartment building that isn't inhabited by a lot of people, meeting a young man played by Paul Mescal. The two of them start to have a relationship, while simultaneously Andrew Scott's character starts to see visions of his dead parents. It is one of the most emotionally vulnerable movies I've seen in the past few years. I feel like not only the examination of queer people and, how vulnerable you have to be to expose yourself to your parents and be true to your identity when they might not necessarily be open and accepting of your identity, and then just a relationship between a parent and child in general, and how years of life and separation can create different dynamics. And there's so many amazing conversations in this. The filmmaking is absolutely breathtaking. It's just truly a remarkable movie that I think is is 100% worth and deserving of being in the Criterion collection. Next, and I won't go into too much detail with this one, is Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water. If you're watching my series right now, watching every Best Picture winner, I very openly described how that is one of my favorite movies of all time. I think that it just goes to show the beauty in loving who you are as a human being and finding people that are like you, that understand you and care about you for who you are. Obviously told in a very fantasy-like way by using a fish creature, but it's just beautiful. It feels like a fantasy world. The production design, as per Guillermo del Toro's usual, is absolutely beautiful and breathtaking. It has one of my favorite scores to a film of all time. I'm so glad Criterion released this because I didn't have a regular Blu-ray copy of it beforehand, and so having it in the Criterion version and knowing that it's in like its original format, really excited to have that as a part of my collection. Just truly a brilliant film. Up next is Todd Solondz's Happiness, probably one of the most disturbing films that I own in the Criterion collection, that's also sort of beautiful, examines the human experience in a way that showcases the most depraved, disturbing, awful people in the world, and also just the most frail and vulnerable people in the world. You kind of get a scope and dichotomy of individuals shaping all different lifestyles, to the point where one of the characters that is explored is a pedophile, and it's like some of the most disturbing, awful things you can possibly see in a movie, but not necessarily showcasing his experience, but the way that his decisions impact his family's life and the people around him and the lives that he destroys. I think Todd kind of used this movie to sort of encapsulate the human experience. And what's interesting about it is it's a film that understands human experience and that empathizes with certain people, but also isn't afraid to show just how evil human beings can be and how awful people genuinely are. There is a very narcissistic approach to this movie and a thought process of just feeling very negative towards the world as a whole. And I think that that's always the sign of a great artist, right? Is people that can be bitter about the state of the world and how things operate. It's a movie that I feel like moves me in a very visceral way. You laugh at a lot of things you probably shouldn't laugh at, but you also can feel very emotional in moments in the movie too. I just think it's absolutely brilliant movie I think about quite a bit. I had to incorporate at least one horror movie in this list, and that is going to be Carnival of Souls. I still can't believe that Herc Harvey only ever made one movie in his entire career, and it's one of the greatest horror movies ever made, about a woman who works as a church organist. She gets into an accident with her friends. She's the only person who survives the car accident, doesn't want to live in her own town anymore, so she takes a job at another church to be an organist. She does not really believe in religion. It's not really a part of her life. She moves to this new town and is haunted by these visions of ghosts. She doesn't feel like she belongs in the world, and she kind of feels this empty absence. And I think the movie does such an amazing job at kind of showcasing people that don't feel like they're a part of this world and don't feel like they can connect to any other individuals. I feel like it shows that emptiness in a way that's so incredibly relatable. I feel like this movie is years ahead of its time. Some of the most beautiful black and white cinematography you will ever see in a film, some of the most haunting imagery, one of the most beautiful film scores of all time. The organ music in this, it just kind of rotates in my head consistently. Just absolutely brilliant. A movie that I could not watch enough. I just love it. I revisit it at least once a year. And then I wanted to finish up the list by giving you guys a couple of like box sets or some of the things that are a little bit more expensive that I think are worth picking up at this time period because you can get them 50% off. And the first one is going to be Richard Linklater's Before trilogy, three of the greatest films of all time in my personal opinion, showcasing the different stages in a relationship. It is about these two people that get on a train in Europe. They end up stopping at this place together after having a very long conversation and saying, hey, we've both got to get back to our regular lives soon. Why don't we see if this can work? Let's go find out if this relationship can happen. And throughout the three movies, you get these characters at three very distinctly different moments in their lives, and that kind of showcase the spectrum of a relationship between budding young love realization you want to be together permanently, and then what it's like after you've been together for a very long time. Two absolutely incredible performances from Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. Their chemistry is absolutely amazing. The cinematography in the film is absolutely beautiful, captures these parts of Europe in a way that just makes you want to travel there immediately. Just really remarkable stuff. Some of the best dialogue ever written in any movie, period. They're movies that I think about quite a bit. I think it's one of the greatest trilogies of all time, and I really hope you check it out because they are fantastic. And then last up, I'm going to give you another trilogy of films today, and that is Krzysztof Kieślowski's Three Colors trilogy: blue, white, and red. Three distinctly different movies that are all absolutely incredible. Blue, red, and white, obviously the French flag. I feel like there is a lot of symbolism in relation to that, but each movie takes place in a different part of Europe, and each character kind of goes through a different experience. The first film, Blue, is incredibly somber. The second film, White, actually has a pretty distinct comedic tone. There's definitely dramatic beats, but it's much funnier than the other two films. And Red is much more reflective. I feel like the drama is there, not necessarily as intense as Blue. Red might be my favorite. White might actually be my favorite of the three. It kind of shifts each and every time that I watch them, but they're all three incredible. And the way Kieślowski ties all three films together in Red is just incredibly remarkable. The cinematography in it, some of the most mind-blowing I've ever seen in any movie, period. I feel like all three films are directed to the highest caliber of talent you can imagine. Great performances from everyone involved. Just three remarkable films that are 100% worth being in the Criterion Collection. So what are some films in the Criterion Collection you think I should pick up in the sale? Obviously, these are just some of mine. I own over 60 films in the collection. I'm always looking to add to more and to watch more films in Criterion's collection. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.